Consider supporting Review Tech USA on Patreon for just $1 a month. Link below in the description. No, the title of this video is not clickbait. Halo 3 may have literally ended up saving my life and indirectly helped start this YouTube channel. Stay tuned to find out why. Skip it up and that up. Halo goddamn 3. That's an infamous line from a video I made on my old YouTube channel many years ago. So if you're one of the whopping 20 people who've stuck around for this long who remembers that old video on my old channel, you're awesome. Most of you probably aren't here. Hell, maybe none of you stuck around, but whatever. I'll explain why that video is important in a few minutes. So what sparked me to actually want to talk about Halo 3? Well, it was actually a YouTuber named GGManLibs. He has a phenomenal YouTube channel where he does game reviews, and they're top-notch, excellent production value. He's well-spoken. He does very detailed reviews. I suggest you go check out his channel. I'll have a link to it below in the description. But anyway, he had a video actually reviewing Halo 3. In the video title, it says 10 years later. And I forgot that Halo 3 is now over 10 years old. It came out September 25th, 2007, and I was watching his review, and it's well done. Once again, I'll have a link to that below in the description too. But I couldn't fathom that the game's over a decade old. Where the hell did 10 years go? It feels like yesterday I was just going to GameStop to pick it up, and I was all hyped for it due to all the campaign hype and marketing hype that Bungie had before the game was released. I just cannot think where did 10 years go? But anyway, seeing his review also made me realize how important Halo 3 was to me. It ended up becoming my favorite multiplayer game of all time. Keyword is multiplayer. My favorite game of all time goes to Super Castlevania 4. But not only did I end up loving Halo 3's multiplayer a lot, obviously, it got me through a lot of tough times, Halo 3. And what Halo 3 got me through proves why video games are not only so important to me, they're so important to many other people. And my story with Halo 3 from the day I picked it up all the way to years later when I was still playing multiplayer is very interesting. So you're going to want to stick around for this because I have a lot of stories to tell you, and they're all very colorful. So it actually begins before Halo 3 was released in late September 2007. Again, Bungie had a brilliant marketing campaign around Halo 3, and they had trailers such as this one.
Can you tell us what you remember about the battle?
We'd been fighting for a while. On the 7th day, we ran out of ammo. We had to scavenge all we could from the weapons that had been left behind. The pistols, shotgun rounds, a handful of grenades.
Do you remember where you were?
When Master Chief armed his grenade, I was in the back of an overturned Warthog firing an M41.
How did you manage to keep it together?
We knew Master Chief was still in the fight. He gave us hope.
Yeah, that museum trailer with the old veteran looking at the figurines which reenacted one of the battles from Halo 3. To this day, I really think that the marketing campaign that Microsoft and Bungie did for Halo 3 is one of the best marketing campaigns to hype a game of all time, if not the best marketing campaign. And those trailers, along with the Believe trailer, where they also had the figurines and, you see Master Chief's supposed lifeless body being held up, then all of a sudden his helmet comes up and it says Believe. Man, that made me smitten for Halo 3, which was funny because I wasn't a huge fan at the time of Halo 1 and 2. But that right before Halo 3 was released was just when I started getting back heavy into gaming. I just picked up in 2007 the Xbox 360 with Gears of War with my tax return that year, and that really got me back into gaming. So at the time, right before Halo was released, I was super excited for like everything that came out. And the job I worked at the time, the people I worked with were also very excited for Halo 3. And on our break, we would watch trailers on Bungie's website where they had those trailers that I just spoke to you about, and we would look up information on Halo 3. Again, we weren't supposed to, but we did anyway. And there was a lot of people at my job too that were super excited for Halo 3. So that right there was some good memories. And I remember just, it was a way to socialize with other people at my job. And you had men and women at the time who were both hyped for the game. And it was a fun thing to go to work every day and share a common interest of somebody that everyone was equally as passionate about. But let's fast forward to when the day Halo 3 was released. Now, I had a very interesting and crazy ex-girlfriend that I was with at the time. We were together for almost a year and a half. And part-time, very, very part-time, like maybe I worked with her 3 or 4 times, I would work with her at her job. She traveled to different places and did stuff. And the day that Halo 3 was going to be released, I was supposed to work with her that day. And she didn't really feel like going into work. And to be quite honest with you, like I said, I only worked a handful of times at her job. I really didn't give a crap if I worked there or not. She goes to me, I really don't feel like working today. Would you rather have sex and then go pick up Halo 3? And I remember thinking, let me think about this for a second. A job that I really don't give a crap about, and I'll probably make $30 today. Should we go work or should I get laid and then play a video game that I've been heavily hyped about and super excited about and really anticipating for months upon months on end? Let me weigh it out. I think I'd rather get laid and play video games. I think I made the right choice, don't you think? Well, anyway, we ended up partaking in some fun activities, and then we picked up Halo 3. And I remember, going back to the house and putting it in the Xbox 360. Super excited for this game. All those amazing, powerful trailers. And I get through the opening scene and where you calibrate your controls and all that, and I'm just like, meh, this is okay. This is single player. I expected a little more. What happened to Believe? Where's all that stuff? And I kind of lost my Halo 3 steam. It kind of popped my Halo 3 bubble. I wasn't super excited for the game anymore. But in the end, it still ended up being awesome for me. And I'll explain why. Now, this ends up being 4% of the reason why I was no longer with my ex and decided to break up with her. My ex had a very, very, very crazy dog. Okay? Now, I love animals. And when you meet somebody, whether it be a friend or whatever the case may be, sometimes animals will be standoffish, but generally, virtually all the time, they'll eventually get used to you and even befriend you. At worst, maybe the dog or cat may always be a little standoffish, but that's usually the worst case scenario. But not my ex's dog. My ex's dog was a vicious son of a bitch, and he ended up biting the crap out of me one time. He bit my leg open, man. I still have a scar there to this day. And the main gig that my ex had, that was the one we were supposed to go to, this other job where I worked, like I said, only a handful of times with her. Was only a part-time thing she did. She was a nurse, kind of. I don't know exactly what the job would be called, but once in a while she would have to work odd hours. And it was a couple weeks after Halo 3 was released, and she goes to me, Rich, I have to work an overnight, which, all right, no big deal in and of itself. But here is where things got colorful, and here's where Halo 3 is involved. We lived at the time in the hood, real bad area. When you walked out the door, there were crackheads walking around, and the prison wasn't there was a jail not too far away. It was, yeah. And the apartment we lived in was a really rinky-dink small apartment. So she went to work, and the problem with her going to work was her vicious dog was there. Every time the dog saw me, it wouldn't just bark. You know how dogs usually get defensive and they'll bark and get nervous and fine, just stay away from him? Her dog would try to come to attack me. not just bark at me, come to attack me to try to maul me. So there was no one else at the apartment. It was just me and her insane dog. So normally if I had to use the bathroom or go somewhere, she would hold the dog. She wasn't there to hold the dog. It was me and this insane dog. So I was held hostage in a closet-sized bedroom that we lived in. And I couldn't get out the entire time she was working her shift. Also, too, many of you are probably wondering, Rich, why didn't she put the dog in a cage? Well, one, the dog was fairly large, and two, she was obsessed with this dog, my ex-girlfriend, and she felt putting him in a cage was inhumane, even though the dog was the most psychotic, vicious dog I've ever met in my life. So talk about an insane situation. But you know what got me through it? I decided to put Halo in the 360 because we had that in the bedroom, and I had people with me because I was playing online on Xbox Live. I play with people from my job. I play with some of my friends, and we did some death matches, and we did that throughout the night. And even though I was in one of the strangest and crappiest situations I've ever been in, living in a terrible apartment in a terrible area with a dog that I think seriously was probably plotting to kill me, I got through it. And it didn't feel that bad because I had Halo 3 and I had people to talk to and I was having fun. It was an awful situation that if I didn't have Halo 3 and video games to get me through it, I probably would have lost my mind, but I didn't. Talk about awkward. Here's a little side note. Because I couldn't leave the bedroom because the dog was in the living room and the way the apartment was set up, it had to be that way. I had to pee in bottles in the bedroom. I had to pee in bottles. And I had to pee a few times that night. So I had to fill up the smaller 20-ounce soda bottles full of pee. I was peeing in bottles. I was in an awful apartment, and I was in the room the size of a somewhat decent-sized closet, but it all felt okay because due to Halo and due to Xbox, I had friends around me. So there's a perfect example of a video game helping you through a really shitty situation. I don't know why I stayed with her as long as I did. She had really nice boobs. Really nice boobs. Still wasn't worth it though, I was an idiot. So anyway, time moves on and I didn't give Halo 3 enough of a chance, so after a couple months of lightly playing it, I put it down and forgot about it. But some pretty big things happened over about a period of a year. In the summer of 2008, I finally smartened up and broke up with my ex, which, pat myself on the back, that was a brilliant thing to do. And a few months after that, in January of 2009, I got laid off from my job, which was pretty terrible. They brought us all into a room one day, and we knew this was coming, but they sat us down in this office building across the street from IBM and said, hey, go home, you're unemployed. So it was an interesting time in my life. I was newly single and newly without a job. And I had a lot of free time on my hands because the job market at the time was looking pretty bleak. This is during the worst part of the recession that happened in the States. If you aren't from the States, that's what was going on at the time. So I started to turn even more towards video games because I was going on job interviews and not getting jobs. And I started to turn more towards YouTube. I found the gaming community on YouTube, and it was really exciting, especially because of how new it was at the time. Uploading a video and seeing people watch it. Granted, I used to get excited when about 50 people watched my videos, but it was a cool thing, and it was an escape from how terrible my life was at the time. Because think about it, I went from being on my own, having a live-in girlfriend, having a semi-decent job, to being single and losing my job and having to move back in with my family when I was about pushing 30. Yeah, I was a real catch back then, ladies. So anyway, before Review Tech USA was around, it was funny, I actually made Review Tech USA. I made the channel but didn't upload anything to it until like summer of 2009. I made Review Tech USA Thanksgiving night of 2008. Actually, pretty much almost exactly 9 years ago. But I had an old channel called RLM Audio. Now, the reason why it was called RLM Audio was it was a YouTube channel I made for my dad, and he rebuilds amplifiers and component stereos, and we were gonna upload those there and try to sell them. But that never really happened, and I just used the channel to upload game reviews and stuff like that. And I remember it. It was basically right after I got laid off from my job that I decided to upload a video talking about how, I don't remember the exact title of the video, guys. We're going back 8 years now, 8 years plus. And this is in January of 2009, talking about how Halo was overrated. But I do remember the line I started that video with, and it was Halo Goddamn 3. And I discussed in that video how I thought the whole series was overrated. I don't agree with that video at all now, which is kind of funny. But there was a YouTuber back then who really liked that video. And it's kind of ironic how Halo may have actually planted the first seed for Review Tech USA to get as big as it is now. There was a YouTuber back then called T2 Darlanton. And I remember actually watching his stuff. And he saw my video, and there was a time back then on YouTube where you could take someone else's video if you really liked it and post it on your channel to kind of, give them a shout out and prop them up, and he did that. And I didn't know he did that at first, and I put this video up ranting about Halo, and it got like 30, 40 views. And all of a sudden, a couple days later, I go back and check the video, and it got like 10,000 views around that time. Obviously, I don't have the channel now to look at metrics. It's been long gone for almost a decade. But I mean, think about it. This is at a time where if a video of mine got like 100 views, 150 views, that was like mind-blowing. Now a video of mine, because this fairly large YouTuber gave it a shout out, got 10,000 views. So two things happened there. One, I still to this day think T2 Darlanton may have been a big reason why I slowly built up a following on YouTube, because he was one of the first people like, hey, check out Review Tech USA. I kind of agree with him on the Halo series, even though I don't agree with myself now. And Halo, a game at the time which I thought was very overrated, and again, which my mindset on that game the series, I should say, totally changed. That rant I made helped people find my channel and gave me some recognition. Granted, it wasn't a huge amount, but still, 10,000 views on a video on a channel that barely had 150 subscribers is a pretty big deal. Now, in January of 2009, due to everything that just kind of happened at once, me breaking up with my ex-girlfriend, which was a fairly long relationship, about a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half. Me losing my job, which I actually thought was going somewhere and would have been, a stepping stone to a career, but losing that, I got hit with the worst case of anxiety and depression that I may have to this day ever had. I've never been in that much of a rut. I mean, I got to the point where I couldn't get out of bed to take a piss without having a panic attack. It was that bad. Luckily, even though this may not sound like a lucky thing for me to say, luckily, a friend of mine, who shall remain nameless, also lost his job at the same time too. And he had an Xbox 360. And we would always talk. Back then, this is still when, Yahoo Messenger and AIM were still relevant. We would chat on there a lot. And he goes to me, you have Halo 3, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, why don't we play it online? I'm like, nah, man, dude, I'm over that game. It's so overrated, blah, 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 blah. And he goes to me, you need to shut up and put it in your system. We're going to play online. I have nothing else to do, and you have nothing else to do. And he was right. But I was also making excuses, too, because I was so in a funk that I just, even like picking up a controller at that time, like was too much energy. That's how bad I was. But he convinced me to do it, and we started to play. And at that moment, I'm like, wow, this game is making me feel better. And I got to actually talk voice to voice with one of my closest friends. So it felt like I was having a human interaction. And all of that anxiety, all of that misery where I was thinking about my life being in a rut, how I had to move back home, how I was single again, how my job that I thought was going to end up at least starting to lead me to a good career crumbled right in front of me. All this stuff that just, this like well of misery I was just waiting in. When I played Halo Online and talked to him and played the game, I forgot about all that. I felt good. I almost felt like I was a kid again, and I was playing GoldenEye, even though there was no one physically around me, but because I was having human interaction voice to voice, I almost felt like I was playing like 4-player split screen. And it started to become a habit. It started to become something we would do nightly. Like, we would do our thing, look for jobs during the day, and do whatever else we needed to do. And then around like between 7 and 9 p.m. every night, I would get online with my friend, and we would just play Halo for hours upon hours on end. And it was an amazing way to escape. It wasn't that we were just staying escaped. It wasn't that we were avoiding problems. We tried to look for jobs during the day, and how many interviews I went on. And I remember one time, because I had a technical background, I showed this sales job on my resume, because I did have a sales background too. And the guy looks at me and he goes, "You just got laid off from IBM. I saw what you did there. You have it on your resume. As soon as you find a job like that again, you're going to leave here." And I remember looking at the guy and saying, "Look, I really," because it was a job selling smartphones or phones, because in 2009 smartphones existed, but they weren't like they are now. And he was like, "There's no way I'm going to hire you. As soon as something better comes along, you're out of here. I'm sorry, I know you need to work, but I need to find someone who's going to be a permanent fill for this position." And that's what I dealt with. And I just remember leaving those interviews being so depressed, and my anxiety just like getting to the point where I was shaking, and just it was almost like an antidepressant playing Halo, because when you would deal with all these real world problems and think of how much my life was a mess, and I would think, man, my life is totally terrible right now. And then I would sit down with that controller, I would put on my headset, I would talk to friends online, especially that one friend that I just mentioned before, that I won't say his name. And all that went away. I could be on the brink of having a terrible panic attack, and as soon as I would put on Halo, I would feel my anxiety decrease. And I just remember dumb things like we would play with this girl that was in the Army, and my buddy, because I think they became friends on Facebook or something like that. And my buddy, like, "Dude, she's actually kind of hot." I'm like, "Okay." She's on like the other side of the country. I don't care. It's like, oh, it's like he would like try to ask her out on a date, and like, "Hey, you should come live with me." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you're pushing 30. You also had to move back home. That would nothing sexier than flying the other side of the country for a guy that's pushing 30 and had to move back in with his parents." But it was so funny. He was trying to kick game to her over Xbox Live, and just stupid crap like that, you remember. And it was that stupid crap, and it was this game that saved me from losing my mind. I remember there were points that I was on the brink of thinking that I was going to have to go to a psychiatric hospital. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. It was that bad. I was pacing around in my living room, not knowing what to do, because I just felt like the walls were closing in on me. And then I would get in front of Halo, and that feeling would go away. I would get in front of Halo 3, and it gave me a sense of comfort that nothing else could do. And I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for that at that time. I was in a really dark place, and that game, Halo 3, may have literally saved my life, because I was in a place I've never been before, I've never been since, and never want to go back to. And even with how miserable I was at the time, that game, playing it, and having other people to speak to, and being able to talk with my friend voice to voice, I'm pretty sure that it saved my life. And games are the one media or one medium that is capable of doing that. I know that maybe, at least with me anyway, I'm sure films can do it with people, but there's just something about games and being immersed in the experience and speaking to other people and controlling the characters on screen that took the pain away from me. And you don't have that level of immersion with film or television to do that. And if it wasn't for Halo 3 allowing me to escape like that, I don't know what I would have done. So it's amazing to look back on Halo 3 and realize that it's over a decade old, and to really sit back and think how much a game, a single game, has done for me and how beneficial it was to my life. Gaming is a lot more than a form of entertainment to me, and I have to thank Bungie and Microsoft and Halo for keeping me sane when I thought I was going to lose it. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and to hear more content like this, make sure to subscribe to Review Tech USA.